Black households in general have made substantial gains, though, in net worth. Now, please take this with a grain of salt because when I tell you what the gains were between 2019 and 2022, the disparity still exists compared to white households, as an example, but the increase was from 12.7% to only 15.5% of the median white household wealth. This equated to only $44,000, basically. And however, it was considered like the largest wealth gain for any racial group. Now, mind you, we literally went from it was only a 3% increase, about give or take, right, to 44,000 as our median net worth. So I'm going to agree with Delvin that there are some folks out here lying on the gram, lying on the socials, because if the median is $44,000, there's no way in hell you can afford it made back. And what has happened is that we've created a cycle of debt. And this cycle of debt has left us in this so Tia, she mentioned how we got this credit because in some countries they don't even have credit. You can't if you don't have the money to buy it, i.e. the cash, the gold, whatever the case may be to buy it, then you can't get it because they don't operate on credit systems. But we do here. We operate on credit. And that's another way to keep us in this perpetual cycle of debt, which therefore technically keep us as worker bees in the economy because we have no choice because we're in this debt cycle. I actually contribute this to what I call the Peacock theory. I'm not quite sure if you guys have heard of the Peacock theory. I personally love it because I think it describes the Black folks in general, particularly, Black folks in general, although traditionally is associated with men because men have the tendency to want to be the peacock and flash and do all this stuff to show that they and derive value. I know I saw the look, but technically, if you look up peacock theory, it does say that it's tend to be associated with men because the men peacocks, as in the peacock, the actual bird, the men are the more flashy of the bird. And while they do their mating dance and so forth to attract the woman's attention, the female peacocks are actually pretty plain Jane looking and kind of boring. And so that's why they associated with men while you was throwing me that look over there, Jay. So I just want to make sure that you're aware of where it came from. But anyways, so basically the peacock theory says like in displays of assets, be it appearance, behavior, or possessions, they're using it to signify like, oh, this strength or this status or this fitness that I am this person, I can afford this, I am the man or the woman in some cases. And meanwhile, they're really just surviving. But they need it because, and so traditionally men will flex like the wealth, the cars, the clothes, and basically be shaking their tail feathers without actually shaking tail feathers. Whereas the women will flex the trips, the vacations, and so forth because they're trying to say, "Hey, I'm free. Look at me." And all this "I'm free, look at me," or all this flexing is really just keeping us in a cycle of debt. And so I agree that what's considered luxury has definitely outpaced our actual income based on the statistics that we see. But not only just based on the statistics, but literally based on the fact that we stopped spending at Target and we was able to shut it down for the most part. So that tell you how much money was leaving our community. And if we think about the fact that in our community alone, the dollar was only hitting us, the dollar would hit our pocket once and then go out. Whereas other communities, it will cycle up to 7 times depending on the community. So I agree once again that we have hit a time in our life where we're too busy chasing this. And I must say that part of it comes from our history and is rooted in the fact that we felt like we do have to dress a certain way. We do have to be to meet a certain standards so that we could be taken seriously or so that we can be considered a good Negro, as they would say back in the day. And then it ended up evolving to where the hip hop culture ended up taking over and telling us what we need to prioritize in our life or what we need to aspire to. And that's why music is so profound in our community. And that's why even the frequencies have changed because they know that the frequency teaches us something too, i.e. generate certain emotions and thoughts and so forth. And so I will co-sign 100% on everything that was said. And I just hope that we actually take this conversation and other people take this conversation and realize that this is a problem in our community and it should be addressed. Now, will it be addressed? Like we're taking the time to address it here and talk about the why or not necessarily the complete why, but how it came to be a little bit. But we can't really delve into it without going into our actual history. And if you just consider modern times, then we know that hip hop has greatly influenced what we're looking at, what we see in the world today.
I just want to add in, I'll tell you, technical difficulties. I think it's our perspective needs to shift. I think that we're not really looking like at the signs, the clouds in terms of the economic forecast. I think what we invest our money in needs to be more real things like real estate, real property, cars, but actual cars that you can drive without them hitting a pothole. Then you need new rims or whatever, like actual functioning vehicles and property. What we're looking at right now is it's like a perfect storm of really bad habits. It's a lot less money in the economy due to inflation and all those other the tariffs or whatever. Then you have the people are getting laid off, so there's less money that people are getting. Then you have these expensive goods that still want to stay expensive, and they still want to turn a profit, so the prices aren't coming down that much. You have people trying to show that they're not hurting financially when they are hurting financially. And now they're like, doing committing crimes or doing other stuff or buying fake stuff just to prove it. And so it's a spiral. And it's a spiral that's rooted in our need for somebody else to look at us. And if we can sell them our fake story, then maybe we'll believe it's true too. And it's got to stop because that's really what it amounts to, right? It amounts to us as almost as a culture somehow not keeping it real anymore, and not wanting to live our truth, and not just stand on the fact that yeah, this is where I am right now, but watch my hustle. You can see where I am now because when you see my hustle, it'll be where it is. And I know that's a culture shock. I remember I'll say this in land. I remember years ago, there was a basketball player. I don't remember his name. It's sad too. Maybe it was Dominique Wilkins. Might have been, but I don't know. But he came out with a shoe, and the shoe was affordable. It was a decent, all right. It was I mean, it was an
Over.
ugly shoe, whoever it was. And he came out with the shoe. The shoe was affordable, and nobody in the hood wanted it. And the reason nobody in the hood wanted it was because it was so affordable, and anybody in the hood could get it, and it wasn't a good status symbol. It had
It
nothing
was
to do
at
with the shoe.
Payless.
So, who was that?
But I get, they weren't that fly. Okay. I mean, have you ever actually bought Payless shoes for real? For real? I get the idea that maybe they're affordable, but them things last like 2 minutes.
True.
I didn't walk out the store good when I was a kid. I remember one time my mama bought me some XJ900s. They looked like they were Hirachis. I
I
wore
had
them. I was
those.
like, I'm gonna be smart. I'm gonna only wear them in the gym. They didn't make it in like one class playing basketball, fam.
Mm,
Okay, that's number one. Number two, listen, I get it because we're all financially literate here, but that is part of the shit that people got to deal with when it comes to just existing in our community. If you're a guy, for example, there's certain spaces and places that you can't even really go to and like present. She can't see past what the fuck you're wearing to get to know you for real. Right. Especially, yeah, like women may judge guys in terms of how they look, but also how they dress, etc. So guys sometimes in the dating market, for example, have to show up a certain type of way. Why? Because people are looking for those things. So I get it. Right. I would encourage guys to stay true to their finances, but I do think that guys who are making a couple of dollars, there's a way that you can play the game and be fiscally responsible still while putting yourself in the best position possible. I'm not saying you got to fake it till you make it, but I do think you got to present until you can kind of like move forward in your career. Like, for example, like you don't show up to the job and not wear suits if that's what your job calls for. Why do you wear suits? Because you want to present a certain type of way and move forward, right? So there are certain standards, right, that we adhere to. I do think the question becomes if we're talking about just a level of luxury, because I think to me that's what the teeth of it is. Because once we start getting into like, hey, people should present a certain type of way, it just depends. Right? People got to go out there and fake it till they make it to a certain extent. Why? Because we're very like image conscious people. We draw conclusions about people based on how they fucking show up. Right. Even if it's, even if we acknowledge it or we don't acknowledge it. So there's a certain level of this. But I think when it gets to like the outpacing of where luxury stands, I think it's great, again, when it's aspirational, but I just think it becomes a problem because what happens is because the luxury is so outpaced that the median of that is also outpaced for real, right? If you know what I'm saying? Like because people's vision of the end goal is way over here and you just start at zero and then the median is going to kind of just naturally move a little bit further away from reality. And there's just way too many people who I think are allowing that mirage of that extreme luxury affect how they feel about themselves, right? Affect how they see themselves, affect how they deal with other people. And I think that's where it really becomes a danger. But I do think it is important for people to have aspirations. It is possible for you to become a billionaire in 2025. Now, how possible it is, not very likely, but we are seeing people that look like us do it. And so I think it's great to see those, but it doesn't mean that we have to slavishly go out there and pretend as much as possible and put ourselves at a detriment.